Welcome back. In the previous session, we explored how medical affairs lays the scientific foundation for a successful pharmaceutical launch, from communicating data to supporting clinical trials to engaging thought leaders early on. But as we get closer to launch day, the landscape changes. Deadlines get tighter, commercial teams get louder, the spotlight intensifies. And this is exactly when another dimension of medical affairs becomes mission critical, ensuring everything stays ethical, compliant, and internally aligned. Because here's the truth. No matter how innovative your product is, if your launch communications cross regulatory lines, if your teams aren't aligned, or if your risk signals are missed, the entire launch could be jeopardized. So in this tutorial, we're going to shift gears and dive into the internal engine room of launch readiness. We'll talk about how medical affairs ensures regulatory compliance is not just a checkbox, but a launch-enabling strategy. The critical role medical teams play in internal training, making sure commercial, regulatory, and field colleagues stay scientifically accurate and compliant. We'll explore risk management and pharmacovigilance, because even after approval, safety isn't static, it evolves. And we'll close by looking at how medical affairs navigates the tension between speed and compliance, ensuring we launch with both impact and integrity. This part of the journey is less visible, but absolutely essential. And often, it's what protects the success we've spent years building. Let's get started. Let's begin this session by focusing on something that doesn't always get the spotlight, but absolutely deserves it: compliance, ethics, and internal readiness. You see, when people think of a product launch, they often picture the external fanfare, conferences, marketing campaigns, sales rollout. But the truth is, none of that matters if you don't have a solid, compliant foundation behind the scenes. This is where medical affairs steps in as the gatekeeper and enabler at the same time. On one hand, medical ensures that all scientific and promotional communications are accurate, balanced, and compliant with regulations. On the other, they work tirelessly behind the scenes to train internal teams, align scientific narratives, and guide the organization through ethical and regulatory complexities. Why is this so important? Because at launch, everyone moves fast, and speed often tempts shortcuts. But a single compliance misstep can derail months, even years of work. And more importantly, it can impact patient safety and damage trust with healthcare professionals, regulators, and the public. Ethical rigor and scientific clarity are what protect a company's reputation, and medical affairs is the team that keeps these principles front and center, especially when the pressure is on. Throughout this tutorial, we'll walk through the core components that medical must oversee to ensure not only a successful launch, but a responsible one. From internal education to risk management, from compliance oversight to regulatory collaboration, this is where strategy becomes reality. So let's break it down, starting with the cornerstone of it all: regulatory compliance. At first glance, compliance might sound like a legal or regulatory function, but in reality, medical affairs is right at the center of it. Why? Because compliance isn't just about saying the right thing. It's about saying the right thing, in the right way, to the right people, at the right time. And that takes deep scientific understanding, strategic insight, and awareness of the regulatory boundaries. Medical affairs ensures that all scientific and promotional communications are accurate, balanced, and compliant with health authority guidelines, whether they're targeting HCPs, payors, or internal teams. It includes things like slide decks, conference presentations, scientific responses, medical education, even advisory board discussions. And here's the challenge. At launch, there's a lot of pressure. Commercial teams want to move fast. There are investor expectations, Marketing wants bold messaging, but this is where medical affairs steps in with a calm and informed voice, grounding all activities in science, ethics, and compliance. Because let's be clear, compliance missteps can derail years of work. They can delay approvals, trigger warning letters, erode trust, and worse, put patient safety at risk. So while others may focus on visibility, medical ensures credibility. Medical affairs is also the team that often interfaces with regulatory colleagues and health authorities. They help to guide the organization through regulatory complexities, preparing scientific content for submissions, supporting Q&A with regulators, and ensuring every claim made about a product can be backed by solid data. They don't just review and approve content. They educate, advise, and lead. And that's what makes their role in compliance so strategic, not just protective, but enabling. Coming up next, we'll look at how medical ensures internal teams are just as aligned, trained, and scientifically prepared to support the launch. So now that we've covered the external facing side of compliance, let's shift the lens inward, because no launch succeeds without a well-prepared internal team. It's not enough to have a great product. It's not even enough to have a solid scientific story. If your commercial, regulatory, and field teams aren't speaking the same language, aligned in their understanding, and confident in how they communicate, it can create confusion, mixed messages, and even compliance risks. That's why one of medical affairs' most critical responsibilities is to ensure that internal teams are aligned, trained, and scientifically prepared to support the launch. This means organizing and leading internal training sessions, not just once, but continuously. These sessions might cover the mechanism of action, clinical trial data, safety profile, positioning within treatment algorithms, common objections from HCPs, and the do's and don'ts when it comes to off-label discussions. But here's the nuance. Training goes beyond product knowledge. It's about building scientific confidence and compliance awareness, ensuring that everyone, from sales reps to senior leaders, understands the boundaries of what can be said and how to say it responsibly. And medical affairs is uniquely positioned to deliver this because they understand both the science and the regulatory environment. They are the bridge that connects internal strategy with external credibility. Another key point: internal communication must be as deliberate as external messaging. Medical ensures consistency across all teams, helping everyone stay aligned on the data narrative, the value proposition, and the key scientific messages that are both accurate and approved. It's easy to assume that internal means informal, but in the context of launch, what your internal stakeholders say or misinterpret can directly influence HCP trust, regulatory scrutiny, or even patient perception. So, medical affairs becomes the compass that keeps everyone on course, grounded in science, aligned in messaging, and clear in purpose. Up next, we'll explore another core responsibility that surfaces right before and during launch: risk management and pharmacovigilance. Now let's talk about an area that sits right at the intersection of patient safety, regulatory compliance, and medical credibility, and that is risk management and pharmacovigilance. We often think of pharmacovigilance as something that happens after a product is launched, but in reality, it begins long before launch, and medical affairs is at the center of it. Medical affairs plays a key role in monitoring and reporting adverse events, ensuring that any safety signals, even those emerging during late-stage trials or early access programs, are escalated, documented, and responded to appropriately. This is where scientific vigilance meets operational discipline, because it's not just about identifying risks, it's about managing them effectively. That's where risk management plans come in. And these plans can't just sit in regulatory binders. They need to be clear, practical, and effectively communicate it to healthcare professionals, internal teams, and external stakeholders. And medical affairs ensures that everyone understands not only what the risks are, but how to manage them. They train teams on recognizing adverse events, clarify the proper reporting procedures, and help embed a safety mindset across the organization. It's also important to remember that pharmacovigilance is a continuous effort. Even before launch, medical teams are already working to identify and mitigate potential safety concerns. And after launch, that work doesn't stop. It evolves into post-marketing surveillance, real-world data collection, and ongoing education for HCPs and patients alike. All of this work, when done well, does more than just meet regulatory requirements. It builds trust. Because when HCPs see that a company is proactive about safety, that they're transparent and responsive, it reassures them. It strengthens their confidence in the product. And ultimately, it benefits the patient. This is where medical shines, not just as a guardian of science, but as a guardian of trust and patient well-being. Let's now dive into a topic that many people underestimate: audit and inspection readiness. It's one of those areas where everything can seem fine until it isn't. And when regulators walk in the door, either your systems are in order or you're playing defense. Medical affairs plays a critical role in making sure that all communications, scientific materials, and regulatory documents are accurate, consistent, and audit-ready at all times. They work side by side with regulatory and quality teams to prepare for audits and inspections, ensuring that any clinical data, publication summaries, field medical materials, or scientific exchange records are fully compliant and properly archived. But it's not just about the documents. It's also about the narrative behind them. Medical often helps craft and review the scientific sections of regulatory submissions, ensuring that the evidence presented is both robust and credible. And when it comes time for regulatory meetings, whether with local authorities, EMA, FDA, or others, medical affairs may even participate directly, bringing clinical expertise and supporting the rationale behind the data and the development program. Why does this matter? Because these meetings and the audits that precede or follow them are often make or break moments. They influence labeling, approval timelines, post-marketing requirements, even market access decisions. That's why proactive preparation is so important. Medical affairs can't afford to scramble at the last minute. Their documentation, responses, and internal communication trails must be transparent, consistent, and readily accessible. This type of readiness doesn't happen by chance. It's built over time. It's the result of a culture where compliance is not just an afterthought, but a core part of the launch process. So, by embedding this mindset and leading with scientific rigor, medical affairs ensures that the organization is always prepared, not just for approval, but for scrutiny, accountability, and long-term credibility. Now, let's shift into a topic that is equally important but often tricky: how to maintain this compliance when the pressure from commercial teams intensifies just before and after launch. Let's talk about the reality of launch environments. They're fast-paced, high-pressure, and commercially driven. There's excitement in the air. Sales teams are eager. Marketing campaigns are building. The whole organization is focused on one thing: getting the product out and making an impact fast. And this energy is not only understandable, it's necessary. But it can also create tension. Because in this push for rapid market penetration, there's a risk. Messaging can become oversimplified, scientific nuance might be lost, and promotional materials may walk too close to the regulatory line, or even cross it. This is exactly where medical affairs becomes crucial. Medical steps in as the ethical compass and the scientific anchor, ensuring that even under pressure, the data remains accurate, balanced, and compliant. They work closely with commercial colleagues to review and align messaging, making sure that promotional materials reflect the true clinical data, don't overstate benefits, and acknowledge limitations responsibly. It's not about slowing things down, it's about moving quickly with precision. Medical also trains internal teams, including sales and marketing, on scientific updates, compliance boundaries, and appropriate ways to discuss the product. These sessions are essential to equip frontline teams with both confidence and compliance. Think of it this way. In the rush to market, medical affairs acts as a shock absorber, protecting the organization from unintended regulatory breaches while still supporting the momentum of the launch. That's a delicate but vital balance. It ensures the enthusiasm doesn't compromise integrity, and that the excitement is built on a solid foundation of science, safety, and responsibility. This role is not only about avoiding risk. It's about protecting the reputation of the product and the company for years to come. Now let's shift our focus inward, toward the organization itself, because a successful launch isn't just about what the world sees. It's also about what your internal teams know, believe, and are ready to act on. And this is where medical affairs, once again, plays a pivotal role. As the scientific stewards of the product, medical affairs is responsible for training all key internal functions: sales, marketing, market access, regulatory affairs, and even corporate communications. The goal? To ensure that everyone is equipped with accurate, consistent, and up-to-date scientific knowledge. This training isn't a one-off workshop or a static slide deck. It's an evolving, ongoing process that adapts to new data, regulatory updates, and competitive intelligence, and it must be tailored. For example, commercial teams need to understand the data well enough to stay compliant during their field interactions. Marketing needs to know where the scientific boundaries are for messaging. Regulatory and access teams need to be armed with compelling evidence to justify label claims and reimbursement strategies. Medical affairs also develops toolkits, Q&A documents, objection handling guides, and scientific briefing books that make complex science accessible and actionable for every audience. But it's not just about pushing out knowledge, it's about building confidence. Confidence in the product, confidence in the data, and confidence in being able to answer tough questions, whether they're coming from regulators, payers, physicians, or internal executives. When internal teams are aligned and speaking the same scientific language, it creates a seamless experience for external stakeholders. And when that happens, trust is reinforced, credibility is enhanced, and the product enters the market on solid ground. So, medical's impact here is twofold. They train minds and they shape mindsets. In the next slide, we'll explore the broader culture that makes this possible, a culture of compliance and continuous learning, reinforced by medical affairs at every level. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Beyond materials, messaging, and meetings, there's a deeper impact medical affairs has during a product launch. It's the role they play in shaping the culture of the organization, a culture of compliance, integrity, and continuous learning. Medical affairs leads training not just to explain the rules, but to help everyone, from commercial to regulatory to executive teams, understand why those rules matter. It's about embedding a mindset of ethical vigilance that doesn't just check a box, but becomes part of how people think, speak, and act every day. They also support audit readiness and inspection preparedness. This includes everything from documentation protocols to real-time access to medical data, ensuring that if the regulatory authorities come knocking, the organization is fully prepared. But culture doesn't grow from static processes. It thrives on feedback, reflection, and evolution. That's why medical affairs continuously reviews and assesses compliance practices, not just looking for errors, but looking for opportunities to improve. Are our training materials effective? Are our teams confident in applying the guidance? Are we catching issues before they become risks? And here's another key role: trend watching. Medical affairs teams stay close to the industry. They monitor emerging compliance challenges, regulatory shifts, and even issues affecting competitors, using those signals to adapt the company's own practices before problems arise. This isn't about fear, it's about foresight. It's about creating a launch environment where compliance isn't seen as a barrier, but as a strategic enabler, something that protects the product's value, sustains trust with stakeholders, and elevates the professionalism of the organization. Once the product is launched, the job is not over. In many ways, it's just entering a new phase of responsibility. Medical affairs plays a central role in risk management and pharmacovigilance, ensuring that patient safety remains the top priority long after the first prescription is written. This starts with monitoring and reporting adverse events quickly, accurately, and in full compliance with local and global regulatory requirements. It's not just about collecting data. It's about knowing what to do with it, escalating it through the right channels, and ensuring timely, appropriate action. Equally important is the implementation of risk management plans. These aren't just theoretical documents. They must be clear, practical, and communicated effectively to healthcare professionals, internal teams, and even patients when necessary. And here's the key: pharmacovigilance is not a one-time effort. It's a continuous post-launch discipline. Medical affairs often leads post-marketing surveillance studies, registries, and other real-world evidence initiatives, tracking the product's safety, effectiveness, and performance in real clinical practice. The benefits of this are twofold. First, it ensures that any emerging safety concerns are caught and addressed quickly. Second, it builds trust with both healthcare professionals and regulators. Because when you are proactive about safety, people notice. It reassures them that your organization is committed to doing what's right, not just what's required. In fact, many regulatory authorities look closely at how a company handles pharmacovigilance in the months and years after launch. It can influence ongoing approvals, labeling changes, and even the company's reputation for reliability. So, while commercial teams are focused on uptake and market share, medical affairs is quietly but critically ensuring that the product's safety profile remains transparent, well managed, and trusted. Up next, we'll close the loop by looking at how all these efforts come together to protect the launch, sustain long-term success, and strengthen the company's credibility in the healthcare ecosystem. As we wrap up this second tutorial, it's worth stepping back and appreciating just how central medical affairs is to the entire launch lifecycle. They're not the face on the billboard or the one negotiating prices behind closed doors. But without them, the entire launch would be vulnerable to miscommunication, regulatory missteps, reputational risks, and even clinical consequences. They are the strategic bridge between science and strategy, ethics and execution, data and decisions. Medical affairs ensures that every phase of the launch, before, during, and after, is grounded in regulatory compliance, medical accuracy, and ethical integrity. From reviewing promotional content and training internal teams, to navigating audits and ensuring adverse events are handled correctly, they stand as the organization's guardian of credibility. Their work isn't always in the spotlight, but their impact echoes everywhere. They train teams, review data, communicate complex science, and serve as a steady compass in the often chaotic waters of product launch. They also protect the patient, not just by ensuring safety reporting is accurate, but by making sure every message, every educational resource, every clinical conversation upholds the highest standards of responsibility. This is what separates a rushed launch from a respected one. This is what transforms a product from a market entry into a trusted solution for patients and providers. So, as we close this tutorial, let's acknowledge the critical, strategic, and deeply human role that medical affairs plays, not only in launching products, but in shaping the future of ethical, evidence-based healthcare. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive on compliance, internal readiness, and risk management in launch excellence. We encourage you to revisit these lessons and reflect on how each component can be applied in your own work. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions where we'll explore other advanced dimensions of strategic thinking in medical affairs. Until then, stay thoughtful, stay ethical, and stay impactful.